Should you buy or rent gear? That's what we'll be talking about on Beyond the Science today. Kiera, what's your opinion about buying and renting gear?
Damn. This is a very important topic. Pros and cons to each, truly.
Pros and cons.
You know, I do find obviously renting is it has a lot of pros, honestly. And I know you feel differently, and I know you don't feel comfortable renting in a lot of situations.
A lot of situations. I don't rent.
Yeah. I've rented in the past. You know what I love about it? I love that it gives you the opportunity to try out new gear without having to buy and return it. Because you never know, each place's like wherever you get the gear from, you never know, like they all have different return policies. Some of them are stricter than others. Over the years, I find that when you buy gear at a place, I feel like the return policy just gets more strict every year, or every time I try to go back and buy something new. I find with renting, it's really easy if you don't know if you want to buy something, if you don't know if you want to fully commit, and you don't want to make that insanely expensive investment just yet. I think it's a great way to let you know whether you actually like the product that you're looking into. So that's one way. Another way is if you straight up don't have the money to buy the product or the piece of gear or piece of equipment that you want, you can rent. I think we talked about this in the last episode that prompted us to film a topic like this, is that you could rent gear for as little as like $20 a day. And that's really affordable if you don't want to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on a new piece of gear just like that.
I think, so you've talked about the pros. So cons for me, it's more like a personal experience rather than like an actual like...
Is it one specific experience?
No, it's just who I am as a person, I guess. So I'm the type of person, I don't like people touching my things, right? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get better, right? But I have a serious issue with people touching my stuff, right? So that's where like that sort of like I don't like to rent stems from, is that the same way that I don't like people touching my stuff, I don't like to touch anyone else's stuff, right? Mm-hmm. It's always a give and take with me. So that's one reason, right? The second reason is that I don't know the conditions like that gear is in, so could sway my judgment on like whether I should get it or not, you know? So if it's not brand new, right? Let's say I rented a 35 millimeter lens, right? A prime lens. I didn't like it because I didn't see how sharp it was, right? But then like other people use it, they're like, no, it's the sharpest lens. So maybe the that lens that I rented, it was probably overused or someone broke it and now they're trying to let people keep using it. And a lot of places, yeah, they take care of their things, but at the same time, like sometimes it's just like they don't even look at it before someone has taken it out and they just give it to the next person to rent. And that's the other thing, is like you have to make sure you take these things, like care for it, right? So I rather take care of something that belongs to me than take care of something that doesn't belong to me, because at the end of the day, they can look at it and say, oh, well, this looks busted. I'm like, well, that's how it came, you know? And that's why I have this like really weird like thing where like if I ever rent a car, I always take like so many pictures that the guys are always pissed at me that I took every single detail picture. I'm like,
beforehand.
Well,
yeah. No, that's so important actually. I agree with you on that. But honestly, I think another pro is the fact that if you're getting hired to do a job that you don't normally do, you know, if you're getting hired to do a job and that job is, let's say, if you're working in, you know, an atmosphere that maybe that I'm more familiar in, you're working like, let's say, for example, in concert photography, you get hired to shoot a show, and they would love some really close-up shots of the artist. but you're only allowed in the pit for the first 3 songs. And in those first 3 songs, any close-up shots you're getting are mostly kind of from down below. So you get kicked out of the pit after 3 songs. You want a 70 to 200 lens. You don't want to pay $2,000+ to get that 70 to 200 lens. And you only need it for that one show. That's where I love renting. And that's where that, to me, is super helpful in a situation where you only need that piece of equipment for 1 job or 2 jobs and then you return it. I think that can be a super helpful way to just get you more gigs that shows that you don't always have to buy every single piece of equipment that you need for certain gigs. You know what I mean?
Right, right. I mean, it brings a valid point, right? But then there's also things that I could possibly do. Like, for example, like I'd rather borrow from a friend, right? Like, I think that would, I mean, like, also borrowing from a friend
is using somebody else's equipment, which
which is not like which I like. So it's really hard for me for renting. That's why I always justify just buying it, right? Mm-hmm. I can always like build up my arsenal to like be able to get more gigs confidently. You know what I mean?
And I understand where you're coming from with that, and also with people borrowing your stuff, and that's why. I remember in April I had to borrow one of your cameras and a lens for a gig, for a show that I was shooting. And I was very grateful because I know that Omar doesn't like other people using his gear,
people use my
borrowing his gear, anything like that. So best believe that when I asked to borrow his gear, I'm carrying that thing around in the venue like it's my baby. And it worked out beautifully, and I got some amazing shots, and I didn't have to buy a really expensive body and lens. So there are pros and cons to every different scenario in terms of obtaining gear and using it.
Right, right. I mean, like, there's other ways you can, like, quote unquote, borrow rent without even having to pay anything, to be honest.
Let's talk about it.
And honestly, one of the things is, depending on who your client is, you can ask them, hey, do you have equipment that you already have? Like, for example, like sometimes like I'll need light and I only have like maybe 4 lights, but I need more than that, right? So I'll ask the people who are hiring me, hey, do you have any lights available? So that's another way that I can like utilize that, is seeing what they have already and just working around it, right? The other thing is just hire someone who has the gear.
Right. Hire somebody to help you bring on the job. Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
Or contract it out to them and just get the finder's fee for it, you know?
Or of course, if you're in a situation where you're renting like a studio space, for instance, a lot of times they will have lights and they will provide you with certain equipment, like a backdrop or some lights or different things like that.
Yeah. So any way I can avoid renting gear, I'll do, right? Even if it's like at the end of the day, I like it's like I get the least amount of money for it. I don't care, because like a responsibility like that really like kind of like it's less of a headache to deal with if you don't have to worry about it, right? Because like you could get insurance for it, but it takes such a long time to get that money back and to prove that like the reason why it broke or the reason why it's not working properly and all that stuff. You have to like, it's a back and forth. So like, that's why like if I bought it, it's mine. Also, you still have to deal with insurance if something happens to your own thing. True. But like at least like there's no middleman between us.
Right, which is the store that you rented it from.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Or a friend that you rented it from.
Right.
Right. Because I have like I said, like I have a lot of gear just because of like my whole like gear acquisition syndrome, and like it's also too like I like to own the things I use too. Right. So that's.
But I think Mike O'Brien in a previous episode brought up a very valid point. You use at least like 80% of the gear that you have. I want to say.
Absolutely.
You use this gear. So it's not like you're buying this stuff and letting it collect dust on the shelf.
No, absolutely. You got one camera there, 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So
all these tripods, that light, the thing that connects to the light.
Yeah, so it does get used,
stuff for
and
audio.
I find use cases for it, right?
Right.
So it's not like you said, collecting dust, but at the same time, it's like if I need something and it's only 1 gig, how do I do it? I just rather contract it out to someone. Mm-hmm. That way, like at least 1, like I'm giving someone a job.
Yes.
2, I don't have to touch it. And 3, I don't have to worry about the work afterwards because it's someone else's problem.
This is true. And you're still making a cut for contracting that job out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
So that's mainly what it comes down to when it comes to versus renting and buying a gear. I say buy all the way. That's always been me. And that's a consensus I'm given.
And I would say if you're looking to buy, but you don't know how each piece of equipment that you're looking to buy, if you don't know how it works or how to use it or what the product will look like, what the video or photo will look like when using this product, like say you're trying to rent a lens but you've never shot with that lens before, so you don't know what it really looks like.
That's also another like, I know what point you're coming at with that, but there's actually the other upside point is that if you don't use that equipment a lot and you rented it, like you don't know how it's going to come out. So wouldn't you rather buy so you can keep practicing on it rather than renting it and wasting that money?
But what if you buy it and you use it a couple times and decide that you don't like it at all?
Then you can always find it on Facebook Market.
Then you have to go through the process of reselling it if you can't return it easily. And then you have to find a buyer to resell it to.
True.
It just gets a little more hairy. But you specifically, I know that that's how you operate best because I know for a fact, like you said this, you keep every single box that any piece of equipment that you buy comes in.
Yeah, so in case
that's important.
In case if I want to do sell it later on,
right,
I could. Or
but then that's up to you. You bear the responsibility of reselling it on your own.
Absolutely. I always bear the responsibility. It's not like there's always a responsibility to take whether you rent or whether you buy.
This is true.
And the path of least resistance for me is buying, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And that's my consensus. I love buying. Buying is fun. You get like this rush, right?
You do get a rush.
I don't condone buying though.
This definitely shows that you have this syndrome.
Yeah, no, I definitely do, but I do not condone the actual like.
It's just for you personally. And you know what?
For me, yes.
It allows you, like you said, it does allow you specifically to take on more gigs and jobs because you have the varying equipment that is needed for any one of the jobs that you get hired for, which is very important. And in a lot of scenarios, you know, if we're doing a job together, you'll hand me one of your cameras to shoot on because it's better for video. You know, you shoot with Sony. I don't have a Sony. So if we're shooting video, it definitely helps to have, you have like 4 or 5 bodies or something like that. And
something like that.
Who knows how many lenses. So, you know, and you're right. You own them now. So you can do whatever you want with them whenever. It is more in your control in that way,
right.
Which I understand. The part that I do want to emphasize with renting, of course, you bear that responsibility of it not being yours. But if it's something more simple, like a lens, like we were talking about in the last episode, if you're renting a drone, I feel like that's a whole different conversation because a drone is something that's so unpredictable and less in your control that understandably, I would not suggest renting a drone. I would suggest if you're getting into drone photography or videography, I would suggest, like we talked about, buying a cheaper drone and just seeing how you like it and playing around and getting to learn how to use it. But I would say for other types of equipment, like lenses or bodies or anything really, like I do stand by the pros that I mentioned with renting, because if you don't want to commit to buying a $2,000 or $3,000 camera, rent it out, see if you like it, see if it works for you. That's something that's more in your control because you're physically holding it in your hand when you're using it. So if something happens to it that's that drastic, that's kind of on you. You know, with a drone, it's like way easier to possibly have it become messed up. Because it's way easier to possibly crash
and
or something like that.
I have rented drones in the past before. It's not like I haven't rented at all.
It's not impossible to do.
Right.
I just would recommend it less than I would recommend renting other types of equipment.
Right. And what I noticed that like my feelings are when, for example, flying a drone that I rented versus a drone that I own, is that I'm more like I don't take risks when it comes to a certain shot. I rather take the risk on my own drone.
Yes.
Because if anything happens, I have to pay another like penny for it, you know, and I don't get to keep it. At least with this one, I keep it. So that way, like if I do crash it, I can always get a new one, you know? Mm-hmm. But
no, I agree. I agree with your points.
I mean, that's about it when it comes to like renting and buying, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is there anything more to it?
No, I would truly just say that they have their pros and cons in their respective scenarios. So there are scenarios where I do believe there are many pros to renting, and there are scenarios where I agree with you on why you choose not to rent.
Right.
So it all depends on what you're trying to use it for. And I think that's really important to keep in mind when trying to decide whether you should rent or buy. Just keep in mind what you're trying to use that certain piece of equipment for.
Right. And here's the other thing too. It really depends on who you are as a person. If you feel comfortable with renting or buying, that's up to everyone's own discretion.
Yes. What you feel you can
and a lot of
handle.
people can't shell out the actual funding to buy the equipment.
Exactly.
So renting is an option.
If you know that you can rely on yourself to take care of the equipment.
Exactly.
That's
but
what it comes
personally
down to.
for me, and I'm going to say this because I don't want to be a hypocrite and say, oh yeah, you should rent. I'd buy. Mm-hmm. That's my consensus on it. And I'm going to keep saying again, I'd just rather buy, but renting is an option.
And you know, if it's something that I plan on using for a while, if it's something that I know, like say for instance, I already know how a 70 to 200 lens shoots. Mm-hmm. I've shot with them before. You have one. I've used yours like once or twice in a studio setting. But I already know how that type of lens shoots. So if I wanted to say do the research in finding a 70 to 200 lens, at that point I'm looking to buy it because I already know what it does and how it works and how the shots are going to come out. I already know how to use it and I'm confident in it. So if that means I want to search it out and seek it out to acquire, then I'm looking to buy because I already know how it goes.
Right.
And there's no surprises there for me. So I feel comfortable investing my money into that because I know, one, I'm going to use it often and it's something that's going to be of, you know, consistent value to me. And two, you know, I don't want to have that responsibility over and over again for something that I plan on using for many projects.
And that's another thing that you have to keep in mind is like, before buying maybe, and I would say this, like, I don't do this, so I'm just going to put it out there, is that before buying a gear, plan out the amount of shoots you're going to use it for, as well as try to like, with those gigs, like you can do this and this, you don't have to really tell your client you're doing this, but like you can also do this, bump up the price a little bit more so it can already pay for itself.
Exactly. Well,
So,
yes, of course.
Because one of the fees I have on my like client list is gear. And when people are like, oh, don't you own it? I'm like, how do you think I paid for it though?
Right, exactly.
How do you think I paid for it with using it for
Exactly.
gigs? So like I'll put like, for example, like $100 or like 150, 200. It really depends on what the gig is. So that way, like it's always there. So it's like, let's say I rented the gear, like I rented it and put it in my pocket so I can go invest into other things. So use the main money that you get from the gig to put into the business, but also use a little bit of the fundings to invest in the gear.
Yeah, and you've given me that advice when we've talked about me needing, a video camera to shoot video for different gigs, because over the years I found myself getting more and more gigs that have to do with shooting video. And you've told me in the past, like, figure out if you're going to be getting these gigs more consistently, or at least try to seek out these gigs more consistently. And if you find that you keep getting hired for these gigs, then that's your sign to
buy it.
Go and just
beyond
buy
the
it.
signs.
Hey, for real.
What we really talk about.
Truly.
And honestly, just charge people for your gear.
Right.
Just charge them.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think that's the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you did like this episode, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the, the bell notification to know when we do post. Also social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But also, if you guys have pros and cons about renting and buying, just put it down in the comments.
Yeah,
I really want to see it, And with that, video on Kiera's face, video on my face of past episodes. But other than that, I only buy.
That wraps it up.
I only buy. Like that's my consensus, and I'll put a disclaimer: don't buy or don't be me, because I am only me. And with that, thank you for watching, and see you all next time.
See ya. That was funny.